Welcome back to the Sales Doc. Don't you hate when you're like so invested into a deal and a client and things look like they're going great, and then all of a sudden they throw some sales objection at you and it's like you hit the stopping point and everything comes to a screeching halt? Well, you're not alone. That is the exact same challenge that our caller has for today. So today we are answering the question, how do objections help in the sales process? Most of you probably don't think that they do, but I promise you, the objections are actually going to help you in the end.
Hi, Amy. My name's Tom. I'm from Michigan. I've been working on this deal for about 3 weeks, and everything was going great. But now they're saying that the budget is spent. Now, I'm not giving up hope. I feel like there is a way to get the deal done, but I'm just not sure what to do.
I feel your pain, Tom, because we've all been there. Like, this is such a relatable thing. And it's really challenging when you get the stopping point because it feels kind of like a brick wall coming up in front of you. But what this is, what we have to recognize this as, is it's a sales objection. And their sales objections come in many shapes and forms. But I want to talk a little bit about the objection itself and how we can reframe the objection to open up some really great opportunities and ways that we can deepen the conversation and make it even more likely that we can close. So let's start off by talking about the sales objection. First of all, the sales objection has nothing to do with you, your programs, or your services. This is all about the story that they are telling themselves. And I have a saying that I use with my clients, so I'll give it to you, Tom. Stories are expensive and you can't afford to buy them. That's all it is it's just their story. It's not the absolute reality. Now with this one saying, we've spent our budget for the year, that one feels like a reality, okay? But it's not actually a reality because they can find funds. The question is, it might be true that the funds that they allocated for this specific area are spent, but they can find funds. They just have to know that this is the right move and feel confident in making it in order to be willing to do that. So we won't get to that point without addressing the objection. I am a big believer that when they tell you that objection, that this objection rules their life in many ways. It comes up over and over and over again. So I want you to think about the objection that you use when you don't do the things that you want to do. Personally, mine's time. It's always time. It's like, oh, I can't do that. I'm so busy. Guys, I cannot tell you how many times that objection stops me from having the things that I want. So I love when people help me get that objection out of the way. I love it. It's like I need help to just be like, move that out of the way. You can do the things that you want to do. I had a really good friend do this with me where I was kind of like whining a little bit about not getting my book published. And she was like, Amy, you can publish this book. When is it going to be published by? Now, we were also doing this in a very public training forum. So there was a few hundred people watching. And I was like, crap. I have to pick a date. So in front of like a couple hundred people, I picked a date and I published my book on that day. And all of a sudden that excuse that for 6 months, it was like, I don't have time. It was moved out of the way because I was committed and I got what I wanted, which is I wanted to get my book out of the way. So I want to explain, and I'm sharing the story because I want you to understand that your clients will appreciate you helping them to get what they want by moving their obstacles out of the way. So first, recognizing this has nothing to do with you, and it's not like a hard, fast law truth. It is simply their story. And this story shows up for them over and over and over and over again and stops them from having the things that they want. So you are doing them a service as you move this out of the way. Behind every single door is an opportunity. Write that down. Behind every door is an opportunity. So when an objection comes, it's like they're closing the door. Their subconscious is literally closing the door to their mind, and it's closing the door to progress. And this door, this objection, is showing you what is the real underlying issue that's keeping them stuck and keeping them from having what they want. So this, if you'll look at it as like, oh, this is really awesome. The subconscious just showed up and they just showed me exactly the thing that's keeping my clients stuck, that's keeping them broke, that's keeping them annoyed, that's keeping them frustrated, that's keeping them, whatever the problem is. It's keeping them from having what they want. They just showed it to you. So be excited about that. Now, your job, Tom, and for everyone that's watching, your job is to help them get what they want. So if they have things that they have told you are important to them, and you've gone through the project, you know why they want this, you know that they want it, you know the timeline in which they want it, you've already got all that information. Now your job is to help them get what they want. So we're going to be committed. We're going to be at this moment in the sales conversation. Here's the honest truth. You are more committed to them having what they want than they are. Their commitment to what they want is wavering. That's what's happening during this process. So you're going to stay committed so that you can get them to the point of the win. For years and years and years and years, I have taught that there is a 4-part process to overcoming objections. And I've revised it this year. Now there's 5. So if you've watched my old videos and you're like, I know how to overcome objections, you told me before. Well, there's 5 now. So there's something new. All right. So here's how you overcome the objections. The first thing is that we need to acknowledge what they just said. We're not going to argue with them about their objection. We're not going to dismiss what they just said. We're simply going to acknowledge. And so if they say, this sounds great, the proposal looks good, we love it all, but we're out of budget for this year, then you would acknowledge, you would say, okay, so it sounds like we're hitting the nail on the head with everything, but you're just not quite sure where to find the funds. And then they'll say, yes. Now notice that I acknowledge what they said, but I reframe it in a 2-degree more positive way. So if they said, we don't have the budget, then I'm going to come back and say, but you're just not sure where to find the funds. Theirs is a stopping point with no other possibilities. Mine is an acknowledgement of the issue and acknowledging that there are possibilities around it. It's really subtle, but it works. So acknowledge what they just said, but reframe it in a 2% more positive way that creates opportunity for just more possibilities for how to make it work. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to ask them a question. And that question is really, really critical. Here's the thing. You don't even need the answer to this question. It doesn't even matter what the answer is. You need to ask a question because questions open the subconscious. It opens the brain. So we need to ask a question because, again, they've been closing us out. We need that to open back up. So I'm going to ask the question and say, if we could figure out the financing, would you be ready to go? Does everything else look good enough that you feel like this is the right path? And then if they say yes, then now you're going to move into the next phase, which is permission. And you're going to say, well, do I have permission to brainstorm with you? Because I definitely see the value for your organization. And I would hate if finances is the only thing stopping you, when most of the time we're able to figure it out and work through it with our clients. And so if they say yes, now you have permission to give them information. Now, this is where you can talk with them about things like budgets. You can talk with, and again, sometimes I'll ask more questions here. Well, I'll say, well, what have you done in the past when there was something that you really needed, you could see the ROI, and you were out of funds? What have you done in the past? Let's be honest, you guys, it's business. It's not like this is the first time an expense has ever come up that is out of their budget. They weren't planning for it. What do they do in those cases? They figure it out, right? They go and they sell more, or they take some money from their line of credit, or they ask for payment plans. There are things that they can do, or maybe they're already paying for something else that's not working quite as well, and they can stop paying for that and start paying for this. They can figure it out. They're used to it. They're business owners. They do this all the time. So we want to ask that question again and get permission, start giving them information. So this is where you can go into what are your financing options? Can you adjust the scope of work in order to fit what funds they can find, and then finish the rest of it when the new funds come in for the quarter or the year? You can now get into that space of brainstorming and just kind of playing with them. So let's review. Here's the 4 steps we've always had: acknowledge, ask, permission, inform. So the next and last phase, which I've realized some people forget, and it needs its own number 5, is reinvite. So after you have gone through this process, now you need to re-invite them to sign up. To me, that was always super apparent, but apparently it's not to everybody. So re-invite, and then you'll say, so what do you think? Would you like to work together? And what will happen is they'll either say yes and you'll move forward, or they will give you another objection. It is not uncommon for the real objection to be 3 levels deep. The more you're working with a professional versus a personal type scenario, professional, usually you'll get to the real issue faster, whereas with personal, it's going to go on longer and deeper because there's more emotion in the personal and they're trying to protect themselves. That's another good rule of thumb, is the more emotional that it seems like it is, the deeper you're going to have to go in your objections before you get to the real one that's really stopping them. But every objection is a door to an opportunity. They're showing you what they need in order to close. So listen carefully, follow the process. Don't view it as a stopping point. View it as a starting point of you really being able to help them get what they want. So Tom and others like Tom that are watching, you are not the first person who has ever gone through this. Having a sales training, sales coaching place where you can go and ask these types of questions is so incredibly powerful, because sometimes you get too close to the deal, right? I have my podcast co-host, Dr. Monica Ogando, says this, and I love it, so I'm stealing it. She says, no matter how fast you turn your head, you can't see your own ears. So if you're looking for a community that you can get plugged in with, where you can kind of come and bring some of like your sales questions, your marketing questions, come join us in our private Facebook group. I'll put the link in below. You're welcome to bring questions to the table, and I answer all the questions that come in that group. So we would absolutely love to see you over there. Now you know how do objections help in the sales process. The next video I want you to go watch is, do I need high pressure sales tactics? I'm Amy Walker. Thanks so much for watching the Sales Doc, where we diagnose your sales woes so that your sales can be sick.